During the break, so in other words, we just played some stuff from the morning of the hearing. So then the morning came and went, and then when the hearing broke for lunch, we heard repeated reports that the courtroom in which the hearing took place was very, very small, only seated 12, and that journalists were seated in adjacent rooms relying on antiquated video and audio feeds to see and hear what the hell was going on, and it was close to impossible. So we're going to play some footage actually from our Patreon stream, because we did a patron stream. By the way, if you missed that patron stream, or if you're not a patron, sign up. It was a really, really fun time this morning. We took about an hour and a half to hang out with our Patreon members, with Russell calling in from the streets. And so Russell actually caught up with independent journalist Gordon Dimmick, who was in the building. Yeah, he's a great guy. He was in the building, and he explains how none of the journalists were able to see or hear what was actually going on in the hearing. So let's take a look at this. This is about a 3-minute clip from our earlier patron-exclusive live stream. So if you are a Patreon member or a Substack member or a Locals member, you may have seen this already. But here's some footage from our show earlier today, the morning show.
Remember, I'm on headphones, so if you have any questions.
All right, so we'll do a translator. This will be like Tucker Putin. I'll be Tucker, he'll be Putin, and you'll be the translator if I have a question.
Just making Tucker Putin jokes. Don't worry. You're not implicated. Okay. Good to know. All right. So, tell the folks who you are and what you do.
So, my name's Gordon Dimmock. I'm an independent journalist from the UK, and I've been covering this for, well, the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay. Were you in the courtroom?
I was in the courtroom this morning. It was shambolic.
How so?
Well, they've got the courtroom set up. This is the World Court of Justice, so there's going to be some rather large courts in there. So they put it in what I can only imagine is the smallest court that they've got, with only 12 seats in the gallery.
That's what I heard.
So you've got
why did they do that?
Exactly. Why would they do that? This is the greatest case of press freedom ever, as far as I'm concerned, and they're, you know, turning out the lights on democracy here. So they put it in a room with 12 people, and then they put an additional court with seating for about 30 to 40 people, and that's where the journalists are going. And they've got 2 screens so we can watch proceedings. The only trouble is you can't hear a goddamn thing.
This is what I'm hearing, that there's no volume.
You can't hear a word. You get the occasional word, and then the audio goes out and then comes in. But it gets worse than that, Russell, because at one stage, the feed cut out totally for about 60 seconds. And I was putting an update for my Telegram channel, and the feed just cut out, and then it came back on. And then the feed cut, and I'm not making this up, but you heard a toilet flush over the audio, clear as day, and then you saw a guy on his phone sit down somewhere. It looked like the feed had got crossed with another person who was sitting on a toilet somewhere in the World Court. I'm waiting to hear from somebody else who's in the room to make sure that they saw what I saw. Because we all laughed when it happened. We all laughed. Even the guys who were doing the feed at the front laughed. And then all of a sudden it went off again, and it went back to proceedings where you couldn't hear anything. It was literally the only thing I heard was this toilet flush and this guy sit down like he was sitting on the toilet, and then the feed went off. And then it went back to them babbling about, you know, the case where you couldn't hear anything. Largest case of press freedom ever. And they're literally not allowing the journalists to hear what is going on.
So, Russell, ask him, just so I make sure I have this right. So
my partner's asking a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just make sure I have this right. So there's 12 seats in the courtroom, and then everybody else is relying upon a feed that they can't hear?
All right, so to clarify, there's 12 seats in the courtroom, and everyone else is relying on a feed that no one can hear.
That's correct. And all of the journalists are in the other room relying on that feed, so they can't hear what's going on.
It's almost like they don't want
12 people can hear this in real time.
Like that, with your conspiracy theories for saying that, I hope you'll realize that.
Every time Every time, like, this is not new. Every
No.
hearing, every single hearing, every court proceeding, everything to do with Assange, this shit happens. This is totally expected at this point. And it is so obvious what they are doing. You know what I mean? It's so obvious.
Why would you put it in the smallest room? Like, why? Why
they
wouldn't
don't
you just
want
let the people
people-
in the room? If you're setting aside 3 rooms, right, where you have the hearing and then you have the overflow with the journalists, right?
Yes.
Why wouldn't you let the journalists into the main? Why not put the hearing in the 40-seat room so that the journalists can sit in the 40-seat room? And then if you have overflow journalists, you put them in the 12-seat room, right? Why would you put the trial in the 12-seat room and have the overflow room bigger than the actual venue? Since when is the overflow room bigger than the actual venue? Where? I've never heard of a single forum that operates that way.
It's amazing, isn't it? It is. Earlier,
It's like if you walk into Madison Square Garden, okay, the show is in the bathroom, and then we're going to put a screen in the arena so
Yes.
everybody can watch who can't get into the bathroom to watch the show.
Yes, great analogy. That is a great analogy. But earlier, the clip that you played with Kristen Harassman, he was talking about the troubles that like Reporters Without Borders has had. And I think it was the September of 2020 hearings. I don't know, all my time blurs together. There was 3 weeks of hearings, and well, every time there's court proceedings, Reporters Without Borders, Rebecca Vincent, named. That's who is their representative who has been working the Assange case for fucking ever.
Yeah, we're gonna drop some footage of her on X tomorrow.
Yeah, she's been on Action for Assange. Like, she's been around for a very long time, and she always covers it. And they had to literally have just some activist or somebody who would volunteer to show up at like 2:30 in the morning to get a spot for Reporters Without Borders, so that they could even get into the courtroom. They weren't allowing NGOs in. Like, it was just an unbelievable, and it's so obvious. And they do this every single fucking time. Every time there's audio issues, or I think for the big ones, like Kevin, like they had all kinds of issues with the video link. People couldn't connect properly, or when they did connect, they would get dropped randomly. Like, there's always something. It's insane.
Well,
they don't want people to cover
Kristen
it.
Harvinson, he actually gave a speech around lunchtime saying the same exact thing and adding, as you just said, Misty, that this is nothing new. So here is the editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks taking the microphone at lunchtime, right around the time that Russell caught up with Gordon.
Break in the proceedings. I have to tell you that I was not able to observe what was going on inside. When I got inside this morning, I was not allowed into the main chamber. I was sent to an annex room with most of the reporters who were sitting there, not hearing a thing because the audio was constantly breaking. They were leaving the room. They were protesting. And if this is how you practice open justice, I don't have high faith in the court system here. It is absurd that journalists are not able to observe what is going on in the most important case for journalism in modern times. Absolutely absurd. And the fact of the matter is, I was told inside the courtroom, the chambers here, that the court here decided to put this case in one of the smallest courtrooms they had in the building. So only a handful of individuals could observe. What is that? How on earth is that possible with all the massive interest in the case? What are they trying to hide? Why are they toning down the access to this important proceedings? It is not the first time that we observe this. This has been going on in every proceedings we've had in the Julian Assange's case.
Every single time.
So, you know, they kind of make the case unfightable, right? I mean, you hate to be defeatist in that way, but the more you look at this, right, I mean, what other conclusion can you really come to? And, you know, I actually was not planning originally on showing this video, but I have it, and so I may as well. Let me just find it here. So here is Chris Hedges saying that there can be justice for Julian, but it's not likely to come from that courtroom. So this is sort of his answer to just what is so blatantly a rigged trial.
This will come for Julian Assange, but it will not come from within those courts. It will come with you. It will come with us in these streets. They know how corrupt this process is. They understand fully the judicial pantomime that they have engaged in from the inception to crucify the most courageous, most important journalists of our generation, and they are hoping they will not be called out. They are hoping that we will not react. They were hoping that we will not speak out. It is the pressure that you exert on these mandarins of injustice that will free Julian. And I want to thank everyone for coming today, because it is this force in this street and streets throughout the world that will finally bring Julian home. Thank you.
I mean, that's it, right? I mean, and you could say that, well, that's a hopeless case, and you may be right, it's a hopeless case, but that's the only hope you got. You're not going to get a fair deal here.
Yeah. No, no.
Stella was under no illusion that she was going to get a fair deal. You know, we were lucky enough to be able to interview her when Russell had his guest host job on the Jimmy Dore show. And she said that then, and she said that all along, right? I mean, the point of really, I shouldn't say promoting these hearings, but the point of raising consciousness, that's a much better way of saying it, around these hearings, is to rally the people around the cause, because that's the only hope there is. This is obviously a sham. I mean, they had a 36-inch TV screen with a 30-year-old audio setup in there, and like I said, they put it in the smallest room for no reason whatsoever. I mean, it's totally illogical.
For reason, but not for any reason that makes sense.
Not for any reason that would make sense, assuming an honest trial, right?
Yes. And listen, I mean, I think anybody, I've been saying this, I think most people affiliated with the Assange case forever have been saying that. And I think that it's objectively true about anything. If you look at history, we get things when there's mass public pressure. We move the needle, we get change when there's mass public pressure. You can't vote your way out of stuff. We're obviously not going to get justice through the court system, which is, I mean, just pathetic to say that sentence out loud, but there is no justice in the court system. And that's just an observable reality. And I think that being honest about that, and you're right, this could be a fight we won't win. We can't win. I mean, they have no reason really to do anything that we want them to do or that they should do. And they certainly don't have any reason to not go after Julian Assange. I mean, they have to silence him at this point, really. But I mean, we may not win, but Chris Hedges himself said, I don't fight fascists because I'll win. I fight fascists because they're fascist.
Exactly.
And that's what this is. I mean, really, we have two options. We can just lay down and die, or we can attempt to fight back. And I'm really not a lay down and die kind of person. That's just not my style. So, I mean, is it a lot? Because I get that all the time. Like, I don't know why you're doing this. It's a lost cause. They're never going to let him out. Okay, you may be right, but I'd rather go down swinging than just sit back and watch it happen. I mean, that's just, I mean, if you want to sit back and watch it happen, cool, peace be with you. But that's just not my thing.
Yeah, and you also build community around giving a shit about this,
yes,
right? Like, 100%. Even if we fail, right, we're going to build solidarity around the cause of, you know, getting some sort of justice for him. You know, there's meaning to be found in rallying around this family who's going through this horrible thing for no good reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's meaning to be found in defending journalism as a practice, right? That builds morale amongst other journalists. That encourages journalists to go and do the work, knowing it's going to be much more dangerous to do in the wake of what is likely to happen in this case, right? But when you go out there and you hit the streets and you get to know other people who see things the way you do and want to, you know, lock arms and fight alongside you, that is meaningful. It's meaningful in a spiritual sense, as you just kind of said. You'd rather go down fighting, but you also build a certain camaraderie and a certain solidarity that makes future fights fightable, right? Yeah. Because if we all just say, well, I mean, there's nothing we could do, so who cares? Well, then you may as well just say that every single time, because you're never going to actually build the kind of momentum you need to win any fight if you don't rally behind anyone, because it might be too hard.
Yeah.
Right.
At that point, just let Elon put a chip in your brain and
Yeah, right.
move on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just give up. Give me the chip. Moving on.
Exactly.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? Yeah. That's 100. And yes. And I think that what the Assange community has honestly taught me, I think, and I talk about this a lot, because prior to really getting involved in Assange activism, which I didn't really do like hardcore until he was essentially kidnapped out of the Ecuadorian embassy in April of 2019. I mean, I was I would say a casual activist and a supporter for sure of WikiLeaks and of Julian Assange. I read the leaks, I bought merch, I went to rallies, or, anything that they did online, all those things, right? I did all those things. But I didn't really get super active until the April of 2019. And in that time, I have noticed that the Assange community, better than really any other, and I mean, I haven't been involved in all other movements, obviously, you know what I mean? But any of the other ones that I've observed has really done the like post-partisan, we're organizing on this issue and we may disagree other places. That's okay. We're just going to, not to say that it's perfect, and not to say that there aren't fights and cliques, and that there are some groups that don't like other groups. There are people in the Assange movement that certainly don't like me. I'm sure that there are, you know what I mean? And that's okay. I'm not for everyone, but I think generally speaking, the Assange movement is able to put that aside, put that shit aside, and just do the thing. You know what I mean? And I wasn't sure that was possible. I honestly, like, I always, and if you know me, you know, I talk about that a lot. Organizing and working with people that maybe you don't agree with, maybe you don't even like, just to get a thing done. And I thought that obviously that's what we should be doing, but I wasn't sure it was possible. But the Assange movement, again, generally speaking, really does that well. And that is exciting for me to see.
Please clap.